What is up, CrossFitters? Coach Justin here, the WOD nutritionist here at CBG. And here at Consistency Breeds Growth, we help CrossFitters look, perform, and feel confident without tracking macros. I got a special podcast for you today. I'm live on the Facebook group, I'm live on YouTube. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, excited to have you here. I'm the WOD nutritionist, as mentioned. We are all about not tracking macros, right? Tracking macros is not sustainable. You're not going to be 65 in your little app on MyFitnessPal tracking every gram of food, right? So it's not sustainable, and therefore we need to find other ways to really reach these goals. This is what we focus on here at CBG, and primarily helping CrossFitters with and overcoming these challenges of being able to control food instead of food controlling them, right? So I have a special podcast today, mostly for the ladies out there. So I know that a lot of our clients here at CBG, especially a lot of the women, struggle with the scale, right? The scale is sort of a nemesis for a lot of people, and I want to go through a couple of different reasons why the scale can be a great tool, but at the end of the day, we need to use it as such, right? We can't use it to determine our worth or anything else. And I'm going to go through a couple different scenarios as to why maybe using it as the leading indicator for progress maybe isn't the best thing to do, right? So I want to go through that today. So I think that I want to start with just defining why the scale is a good thing and why you can utilize it in some cases, right? The reason the scale became popular is because it's basically free, right? It's basically free. You buy a scale, you can use it for almost 10 years, battery operated, ready to go, and get quick data from it. It's very efficient. It's very fast. Like a DEXA scan is like 30 minutes to an hour, right? BodPod, same thing. All these other types of technologies out there take a while, right? So the scale is free and it's very efficient, and this is why people utilize it, right? So if you have a good relationship with your body, a good relationship with your scale, with the scale and the number, and using it as a tool, it can be really effective for measuring progress, right? So this is why people use the scale and why it became popularized, right? Um, Now, the scale itself is just a tool, right? And it's a tool to give feedback about you and your actual body weight, right? Now, body weight can be in a lot of different things, right? We have organs on our body, we have water weight that we hold based off of how we hydrate ourselves. We have the food that we just ate, right? We have skin, we have all of these things in our body, right? It's not just fat and muscle tissue. That's not the only thing our bodies are really comprised of, right? So I think it's important to really understand that, and that things can change. I mean, your heart's not going to necessarily, heart's a muscle, right? But it's not necessarily going to enlarge itself after a certain age, right? But there are things that can drastically change and therefore make the scale weight change that may not be an indicator of your actual body fat percentage, right? Which is interesting because a lot of people use the scale, and whether they went up a pound or went down a pound, to say that they lost body fat or gained body fat, which may not actually be true. And this is why with the scale, we particularly look at trends. We want to look at trends in the scale, right? So over 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, what has the scale really told us, right? What has it told us about our total body weight over that time frame, as opposed to a week by week basis, or the fact that you weighed in Monday and it's a different weight on Wednesday, right? So I think that a lot of people have this made up number in their head, right? That they made it up. No one told you you needed to be 160 pounds to feel confident in yourself, because that's what we want, right? We want to look more like we CrossFit. We want to feel confident in our body and in our own skin, right? Sorry, my lamp almost fell here. We want to look confident in our bodies. We want to feel confident in our own skin, right? We don't want to feel uncomfortable in our clothes, but the scale may not have anything to do with that, right? That's the relationship with yourself. And that's a whole separate discussion, right? In terms of the relationship with ourself in general, right? So I think that we need to get this idea out of our head that we need to be a certain weight to look the way that we want, because it's not necessarily true. right? So that's the first thing I would say. That number that you're talking about that you put on a form somewhere or something like that, that number is really made up by you, right? It's really made up by you. So we need to keep that in consideration, right? It may not be something that is actually dictating whether we look more like in CrossFit. We can feel confident and sexy and good on the beach and good in our summer CrossFit workouts when we take our shirt off and we're doing a WOD with all the other members there. That weight really has nothing to do with that, right? It could be corollary in some cases, but keep in mind that it's not the overarching indicator of body composition, right? Which I want to get into now, right? I want to get into what other factors can influence the scale weight, what other things that it could be, and you can go down the list to really understand this a little bit better based off of when you're weighing in, etc. Right. So I want to start with how to weigh in because so many people do this wrong, right? They weigh in at different times of the day. They weigh in after they use the bathroom, and then the next day they don't weigh in after using the bathroom. They weigh in on different days, right? Your weekends are very different than your weekday, right? I personally like my clients to weigh in on Wednesdays because on Monday, your weekend might look a little different every weekend, right? And I'll get into a little bit why that might be the case and what factors could differentiate that. But I like clients to weigh in on Wednesday. Then they get a little bit of consistency behind their belt, and every Wednesday they weigh in. We have a consistent day we're weighing in. All right, so that's number one. Find a consistent day to weigh in, right? Also, find a consistent time. What is the right time for you to weigh in, right? First thing in the morning is best, right? You wake up, weigh in immediately. Same clothes, third indicator. So, number one, same day. Number two, same time. Number three, same clothes. Number four, make sure that you are weighing in when either you use the bathroom first or you don't. I recommend before anything. Anything you do, weigh in, right? First thing to do, Wednesday morning, get it done, right? So this is what I like, the consistency of it, because then we get reliable data and feedback, right? We get reliable data and feedback. That's what we want to know to see if we're making progress, right? Now, on top of this, and I'll go through the different reasons why the scale is not the best metric, we need to also get pictures. Pictures are really going to be our understanding. A lot of people are like, what about DEXA scan? What about this? You're not running up to people and saying, hey, check out my DEXA scan and how cool I am. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your DEXA scan, right? Nobody cares what your weight is. Nobody cares what you weigh. Nobody cares about your DEXA scan. Nobody cares about your in body, right? Nobody gives a shit. No one cares. We don't care. What people do care about is how healthy do you look, right? Do you look fit, right? That is our body, and the way that we look is a reflection of the hard work we put in. And this is why people love, oh, I want abs, I want this, because our bodies cannot be cheated, right? Outside of anabolic steroids, we can't cheat it, right? Even if you're still on steroids, it still takes hard work, right? So our bodies cannot be cheated. That's why we love and appreciate bodybuilders and these CrossFit Games athletes that look amazing. Chandler Smith and all of these people out there are like, wow, this person's chiseled. We cannot cheat. He didn't cheat to get there. That's his body because he worked for it, right? And it's the same with everything else, right? So we can't really cheat these types of bodies. And therefore, that's what people want to see, right? And mostly, I would say you looking better and improving your confidence, everything should be for you, number one. But other people that reflect and look at you, it may inspire them to also make changes. It's through your body. It's not through, hey, check out my DEXA scan. Nobody cares. Hey, check out my Whoop. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what your strain was. What do you look like? Right? Like, are you putting in hard work? Are you being consistent? And the effort's going to reflect in your body. That's it. It doesn't mean that you need to look like a CrossFit Games athlete, but over time, you should be making improvements to yourself. Progress is happiness. That's what humans love. We love happiness. We want to be happy. And to do that, we have to make progress. If we're not making progress, that's not good, right? So you don't have to look like Sarah Sigmundsdottir, but you need to show that you're capable of making change over time, and that's in your body. Nobody cares about your weight. Nobody cares. Oh, you're 150? That's so cool. No, nobody cares about that. Oh, you're 18.6% body fat? Oh my gosh. Nobody cares. What do you look like? So take pictures, right? Getting back to my main point. Take pictures of yourself and use this as an indicator of measurement as well, right? The reason I like pictures and not you just looking in the mirror and saying, "Oh man, I don't look good today." Or I'm not looking in the mirror. I don't feel, that I don't feel good. I had a bad day. Da da da. Right? Is pictures don't lie. Pictures are objective, right? You can compare the two pictures and say, oh, okay, same lighting, same amount of clothes, same clothes. This is what things look like for me. Okay, that's how I look. I see improvement. This is great, right? Um, and it's objective versus subjective is you looking in the mirror. You looking in the mirror and say, I don't look good today. You could have had a bad day at work, right? You have a bad day at work. You come home, you look in the mirror. You know, you're not going to feel confident when you look in there. You're going to see something different. This is subjective. We need to be objective as possible. The scale, objective. Although it's not the best unit of measurement for progress, it's still a metric that is objective. That's what you weigh. No denying it, right? Same thing with pictures, right? They're objective instead of subjective. You know, so use these measurements in tandem, the weight as well as pictures, right? That's my advice. Now, why would the weight be different day to day or week to week? Like why would it change, right? The obvious is you've gained or lost muscle mass, you've gained or lost body fat, right? Those are two things, right? And for that, we need to measure trends. We can't just simply say from 1 week of information that we gained body fat or that we lost body fat, that we gained muscle or lost muscle. We can't do that. We can't. It's just not any reliable data. It doesn't make any sense. You know, that's like saying, "Oh man, this week, people got more shark attacks, and more people were bitten by sharks, right?" But oh man, that's crazy. Why is that happening? It must be this week. It's because summer, right? Like it's because it's the first week of summer. We can't say there are more shark attacks the whole year. It was the first week of summer when you're trying to compare from data the week before when it was cold and nobody went swimming. Doesn't make any sense. It's the same with the weight, right? People try to make these correlations like, oh, the more people that eat ice cream are getting bit by sharks. Okay. Is really the case that people are that eat ice cream are getting bitten by sharks, or is it because it's summertime? Okay, that makes sense. More people eat ice cream in the summer. More people go swimming in the summer because the weather's nicer. They go in the ocean, they do this. Oh, they're getting bit by sharks. So there's actually no correlation. Same with the scale. There may be no correlation week to week. It doesn't make any sense, right? Then when we get repeatable data like, oh, from 1975 to 2001, shark attacks have increased over that 30 years. There's more sharks coming inshore. Holy shit. Okay, guys, we need to be safer. We need to do this. We need to do that. We're making an actual correlation that makes sense. So see how I went 30 years there and I got data, right? It's the same with your weight. You have to go like 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, and then say, oh, okay, my scale weight is changing. This is why this makes sense, right? So I think that's important, right? We need to make sure that that's the case. So make correlations over time and don't just necessarily assume causation from 1 week. Okay. So why does the scale weight change or can change? All right. Water weight in terms of how we store water in our muscles. So I'm going to go through a scenario here, and it's going to hopefully be enlightening for some of you, right? When we eat carbohydrates, we're refueling our muscle tissue, right? Not refueling muscle itself. We're refueling something called glycogen. Glycogen is carbohydrates stored in the muscle. All right. Carbohydrates stored in the muscle help fuel our workouts, especially our CrossFit WODs, right? So, boom, eat carbohydrates. Carbohydrates get stored in the muscle. You weigh in, your weight could be higher. Okay, fair enough. Now, I'm going to throw you a real doozy, right? Because as we're storing glycogen, which is stored carbs, okay, our body's storing them not as body fat. Our body's storing them for energy later, which is your CrossFit workout the next day, right? You can weigh in between the time where you had a big carb meal and you're heavier on the scale, right? And not only do the actual carbohydrates add up to a certain weight that can make the scale weight go up, but for every gram of stored carbohydrate that we eat, 3 grams of water come with it. Whoa. So now we have 4 grams extra for just carbohydrates themselves, right? And that's for each carbohydrate. There's 3 grams of water also stored with it, right? Yeah. I mean, you eat 50 grams of carbohydrates, that's an extra couple pounds. 50 to 80 grams of carbohydrates. I mean, that's an extra, it could be an extra couple pounds, right? Especially with the water attached to it. So this is why we need to be careful when we're weighing in. Maybe our glycogen stores are topped off. We had good high carbohydrate meals. And this is why for a really long time, people are like, oh, carbs are not good, this and that, because people would eat carbs, weigh in and assume and gain body fat when actually they were just storing carbohydrates in their muscles, right? And with the water attached, right? So this is why people, for example, on keto, see rapid weight loss. Notice I didn't say fat loss. They see rapid weight loss, right? There's a difference between weight loss and fat loss. Weight is your total body weight, all the things that we talked about so far that your body's comprised of, versus fat loss, which is just the loss of fat, right? So this is very interesting, right? Because on keto, when you eliminate carbs, you will first originally eliminate stored carbohydrates like this. You're not eating any stored carbohydrates. And then for every gram of stored carbohydrate you're not eating, you're not storing that 3 grams of water, right? So in a week, 2 weeks of low carb, you could see drastic changes on the scale, but those changes aren't necessarily body fat, right? So pretty interesting. This is why people on keto are like, I lost 10 pounds this month or 12 pounds in 1 month. This is so great. But they look the same, right? When you start eating carbs again, their weight goes the exact same what it was before, which is not what we want, right? Most people that are looking to join our program here at CBG, work with one of my one-on-one coaches and quit tracking macros, we're in it for the long haul. We're not trying to look good just for the summer 2023, which by the way, if you're trying to look good for summer 2023, that starts now. That doesn't start in April or May or June. It's too late. You need to start now. So if you're working with our team, it's because you don't want just goals for this summer 2023. You want to look good for summer 2024, summer 2025, summer 2026. And these people that are doing this keto thing, they're unfortunately, they're really not in this position where they're actually caring so much about the actual the actual scale weight and how it correlates to your body composition, right? So that's the interesting thing. So be aware of this low carb stuff and keto and all these other things, right? It's just be careful, be careful because you might not actually be losing body fat, right? The other thing that can cause extra weight is injury, right? Inflammation from an injury in certain area. Our body holds on to more water and therefore the scale weight can be up, right? Inflammation can come from so many different places and it could be chronic inflammation. It can be acute inflammation. It really depends. But, you could be feeling some type of inflammation, right? Especially from an injury, even a minor injury could do this, right? So this is key. It's important to understand this as well, that you can have some inflammation in the body and that could really be causing some issues, right? Another thing is being sore, right? So as CrossFitters, right, we're high contraction volume, working out near daily, 5 days per week, right? Actually putting in good hard effort. And, we could be sore from our workouts, especially if we just did some GHDs we haven't done in a while, we're doing some other pull-ups and, all the stuff that we do, we could be really sore, right? And this soreness causes water retention. This is a way of your body protecting itself. It's like, oh man, I better store some water here. Like, I don't know what's going on. I just lost a lot of water in this workout. I'm feeling sore. I better. My body's like, whoa, let's hold on to this. Let's hold on to some water, right? And you weigh in, and you're like, I'm up a pound. What the heck? Your body's just sore. It's going through that process. So that's another thing I would say, right? Other than body fat, look, we already kind of mentioned this, but building muscle. God forbid you step on the scale and you're a pound heavier and you actually built muscle, right? Like that's sweet. Hey man, wow, the scale's not changing, but you're going through a body recon where you're building muscle and losing fat at the same time. God forbid, right? Where you're actually doing both of those things at the same time, which is incredibly difficult to do. and it's doable. We help a lot of CrossFitters in our program achieve body recomposition depending on where they're at in life. But it's very interesting, right? It's very interesting that you could step on the scale and actually be getting results and think you're not because of the scale weight and just quit right there, right? So this is why you can't just go off of the scale weight. You could be actually crushing it, right? Body recomp is crushing it, and you just quit. You know, so be mindful of this. You could be putting on muscle, right? That's pretty dope. Putting on some muscle. That means like all the hard work you're putting in makes sense. You're doing enough strength training. You're sleeping well. Building muscle is way harder than losing body fat. Way harder. And I know people out there, I can't even lose body fat, right? So you're saying it's even harder? It is. And you just got to remain consistent if you want to see long-term results, and if you're not seeing fat loss results, you're not working hard enough. It's pretty unlikely you're on some like plan that's horrible and some of these other things. You may not be on something sustainable, which is another conversation, but you're likely not working hard enough. So be a little bit more diligent with your planning of your nutrition, right? You already know like what things look like, right, in terms of what you need to be eating. So I think that's important. That's important. So, sorry guys, I need to actually plug in my charger here before my computer dies. We don't want that to happen in the middle of a podcast. So the scale. Okay, I'm back. My computer charging. Okay, we're charged. All right, so sorry about that. So yeah, we could be feeling like super sore from our workouts. God forbid we're gaining muscle, right? So that's a really cool thing. The other thing is, especially for women, right? Especially for women, you could be in two different places in the month that can cause the scale to be up, right? And the first is when you're ovulating. So like in a certain month, women have a period of time in that month where you're at peak ovulation, right? And during this time, it's been shown that the scale weight can be up, right, at this time, right? And so there are apps that track this. Actually, for you women out there, I'm not familiar with the apps, but there are apps out there that allow you to track this. And so that's number one, right? Your weight could be up from you being in a period of ovulation, right? And then also your menstrual cycle. So when you start your period, your weight can also be up a couple of days before. I've seen women up, some of them 6 to 8 pounds in this time frame, right? So what we want to avoid, and why the whole overarching thing of this podcast is, we don't want people to get a scale weight and then quit. A lot of people do that. They see a scale weight and they're like, screw it, I'm putting in all this hard work, nothing's working. People quit too early. You quit too early, and these are some of the reasons why you shouldn't quit, right? This is why you shouldn't quit, because there are so many reasons why the scale weight should be off, right? There's a saying out there: there's 1,000 ways to win. Imagine that. There's 1,000 ways to lose body fat and look like you CrossFit. There's 1,000 ways to become a millionaire. There's 1,000 ways to become a billionaire. I mean, come on, you could do anything in the world, become a billionaire. You just got to provide value to the marketplace. There's 1,000 ways to lose weight, based on the food decisions you make, the type of workouts that you want to do, how many days you work out per week, right? Like all of that. And there's only one way to lose, and not become a millionaire. There's only one way to not look like you CrossFit, right? And that's to quit. One way. And of those 1,000 ways, people still choose the one, to quit. And people quit too early. You guys quit too early, especially when it comes to being discouraged by the scale, right? So this is why this podcast is so overarching and special, I think, for the ladies out there, is because if you can get away from just using the scale to measure your progress, you'll probably stay consistent for longer. You won't be discouraged. You'll take pictures. You'll get your performance in the gym as an indicator as well, that you're feeling better, you're sleeping better, your mood is improved, all these things. And voila, you'll finally reach the goals that you're looking for, right? So if you're in your ovulation period, in time frame of the month, or if you're starting your menstrual cycle period, your weight can also be elevated, right? It can also be elevated. Another thing is lack of sleep. Lack of sleep, right? Lack of sleep can cause a lot of inflammatory processes in the body, especially when sleep is allowing us to really recover. Like that's the whole point. So it could be that you're in this position where you're not getting enough sleep, and you weigh in, and the weight's up on a scale, and it's not a gain in body fat. It's just you not sleeping well, right? And causing more inflammation, water weight, and a lot of other things to kind of happen. You know, the last one is you haven't used the bathroom yet. You haven't gone to the bathroom yet. You haven't pooped yet, and there you go, right? Simple as that, right? So there's a lot of different ways that our body holds weight, not just in body fat. So we can't use the scale alone, right? Now, the thing with the scale too, and making up your own arbitrary number, like I need to be 150. You know, look, I've seen people that are 150 that go to the CrossFit Games every year, and I know people that are 150 that don't look like they work out a day in their life, right? Skinny fat, they don't have any muscle. So, look, the scale is just not everything. Get pictures, actually follow trends, put intention behind what you're doing with your nutrition, and be consistent enough to actually see results, you know, and don't just use the scale, right? So, and the scale has nothing to do with your worth. I mean, that's the number one thing, right? And I'm not a part of this healthy at every size movement, but I am a part of the, hey, like we should be trying to improve ourselves, right? If we're overweight, we should focus on being better. But even if you are overweight or you struggle with your nutrition, right, your worth is still there, 100%. Nobody's worth is more than just because of the way that they look. Doesn't make any sense, right? This is arrogant. Everybody's worth out there is the same, and you're a true human being. We're all human. We have things that we want to improve on in our life. Some people struggle with their weight, and it has nothing to do with your worth, right? And that could be weight on the scale. That could be the way you look in pictures. All of the stuff. Your worth is still 100%, right? It needs to be, right? So I think that like I said, you could be 150 and not look like you work out. You could be 150 and look like you go to the CrossFit Games. So quit using the scale as your primary measurement. Um, Now, I think I get this question a lot. Do I need to weigh in every day, right? Or do I need to weigh in at all? Here's my take. Both are extremes. Both are extremes. And I might get a little heat for this, but it's just a reality, right? Weighing in every day is sort of an obsessive nature with you needing the data that that's just not necessary. It's kind of like tracking macros, right? You don't need to track every gram of food that you eat to know you're in a calorie deficit. You just don't. And you don't need to get your scale weight every day to know if you're losing body fat. So, I mean, you can do it, but it's sort of that extreme, right? And I hate extreme. So that's an extreme. The other is not weighing it at all. A lot of people are like, well, I have a bad relationship with the scale. That's the problem. You weighing in, not weighing in is not. It's not that the scale's the problem. Your mindset around the scale and what it dictates is the problem. So you need to work on that. You need to work on your relationship with tools that allow you to understand progress, right? It doesn't make any sense. Like you have to eventually get to a place where you can step on a scale and not feel frustrated or sad or upset about the number. That's a you issue. That's not the scale. The scale is not human. The scale has no personality. The scale shouldn't be affecting your self esteem and your confidence. It's not a person, it's a number, right? So both are extremes, right? There's the extreme of weighing in every day when that type of data is just not useful, doesn't matter. You can if you're coming up for competitions and maybe some other stuff, and then not weighing in at all. I mean, we got to be honest with ourselves here. It's not the scale. The scale is not the problem. It's you and your mindset around the scale, right? It's a useful tool. We have to utilize it. And it's okay to not weigh in for a period of time. I'm not saying you got to weigh in every single week or you got to do anything like that. You don't need to do it. But, and to be quite honest, you don't need to do it at all if you don't want to. Just know that the reason you're not weighing in and using that as a tool that can be really useful is because you need to work on your relationship with your body, with the scale, make improvements with your coach, with your therapist, with other people that are there to support you, because it's abnormal to step on a scale and get frustrated and get upset and get discouraged and not want to weigh in anymore, right? We have to recognize that that's the case. So use it or don't use it as a tool. Find a way to measure progress. If you're working on yourself in the relationship with the scale, let's say it really spirals you and you know that, and you're saying, Justin, you're right. I need to work on my relationship with scale. I know it's an issue that I have. I need to improve it, but you're not ready to actually step on the scale and use it as a measurement. No problem. Don't do it. Don't do that, right? Find another way to measure progress. And for you, it may be just the way that you feel, maybe non-scale victories with PRs and crushing the open this year and feeling like you have energy for your WOD. Whatever the case is, utilize this as a measurement of biofeedback and progress. I think the last thing that I wanted to mention, that if you are overweight, right? Let's say for any obese individual or someone overweight that has, 30, 35, 40, 45% body fat, let's say, right? The scale does need to eventually move, right? That's the reality. So I know there are a lot of coaches out there, and our coaches do this too, right? You may be 10 pounds off your where you want to be, right? Let's say you guys are using that as your measurement. You're looking better in your pictures. Things are great. The scale doesn't need to move that quickly, or maybe even at all, for you to be confident and feel good with where you are, right? But if you're 50, 60 pounds overweight, the scale does need to eventually move. So a lot of coaches out there are soft on this. They're like, oh, don't worry that the scale's not moving. That's totally fine. And it's been 12 weeks. No, the scale does need to move. It does need to move. And a lot of coaches just chalk this up as, oh, the scale's not moving. You could be this and building muscle, and you could be that, which all of that could be true for not for 12 weeks. Not for 12 weeks. You're not building muscle, losing fat for 12 weeks straight, right? You're not, like, for example, let's just take the extreme. Let's say you're 250 pounds and after 16 weeks, the scale hasn't changed. You didn't lose 20 pounds of body fat and gain 20 pounds of muscle for your weight to be 250. It's not possible. So the scale does need to eventually move. It does need to eventually move. So the reason I'm telling you this is not to discourage you if you're in this process and the scale hasn't moved yet. It's to make sure that you're honest with yourself and with the coach that you're working with. Like, look, we've been in this process 12 weeks. I haven't lost a single pound. It's not just muscle. It's not just water weight. It's not just this. Something else needs to change. And maybe that's me being more accountable for the decisions I'm making with food, being on track during my weekends more, not having pizza night 3 nights per week, or going out to eat, or limiting alcohol. Maybe that's on me, but I do know that the scale weight should have changed by now. It's been 12 weeks. So just don't let that narrative of the scale weight doesn't need to change. If you're in a position where you're extremely overweight, like I said, 30, 40, 50% body fat, it does need to change. It does need to change, right? Like, for example, on my 600-pound life, right? You guys would all agree their scale weight needs to change, right? And nobody listening to this podcast is in that position, fortunately, right? And for them, like, of course, wishing them the best to be able to lose the weight and live a healthier life and make those changes, because it's very hard, right? It's very hard when you've been in that sort of lifestyle and your environment is other people that are also bigger and are struggling with their weight, and that environment just keeps cultivating itself around you. But for you guys that aren't, 600 pounds, maybe you're 250 pounds or 200 pounds or 300 pounds. Eventually, over time, you do want to see the scale weight change, right? It has to. It has to. And I think that's just logical. It's just logical. So I know that you guys have been waiting for this podcast around the scale, so I'm really excited to bring it to you. It's hard to lose weight, guys. It takes a lot of effort, but it's simple. The path is simple, right? The metrics behind it is simple, but it's hard to actually integrate into your life. So, 1,000 ways to win, one way to quit. Don't choose the one way to quit. Keep going. Push it, right? I know you guys can do it. So let's have an amazing, amazing week. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. For those of you that are just starting to listen, my name is Justin. I'm the WOD nutritionist, and we help CrossFitters look, perform, and feel confident without tracking macros all over the world. So if you guys have any questions for me about the scale, please let me know. If you're on YouTube or if you're on the Facebook listening live, feel free to comment below or DM. We're giving away this new CrossFit guide on how to look better naked. Comment naked below or shoot a DM naked, and me and my team will get this free guide over to you so you can start implementing some of these things, get past the scale, and crush the Open this year. We got a couple podcasts coming out about the Open, which I'm very excited about. So you guys, I think there was one I recorded last week. Stay tuned for that. If you haven't, go back and listen to it. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll talk soon. Peace out.